Welcome to the Civil Data Analytics video on public-private partnerships. This is to explain briefly the basic concepts of public-private partnerships, also known as PPPs or P3s. Every society needs infrastructure to function. Infrastructure such as roads, bridges, recreational parks, telecommunication networks make our daily lives comfortable. They also facilitate commerce. This in turn helps our economies to grow. Without quality infrastructure, the economy will grind to a halt. Generally, public infrastructure is provided by the government or public sector. The traditional infrastructure procurement approach involves the government contracting consultants to design the project. After a competitive bidding process, a suitable contractor is selected to build the project. It is then handed over to the government to operate and maintain. However, the needs of the public may far exceed government's budget allocation for infrastructure development. This means there are fiscal constraints, and also the process might be very time-consuming and inefficient in some cases. As a result, governments have sought to increase the role of private sector involvement in developing infrastructure, with the aim of benefiting from their expertise and innovations for operational efficiency. This leads to what is known as a public-private partnership, or PPP. A P3 or a PPP is a medium to long-term legal agreement between a public entity and the private sector to deliver a public infrastructure or service such that the risks and rewards involved are shared between both parties. Before the government decides to use this approach, it needs to perform a preliminary assessment of delivery options. It must be noted that not all projects might be delivered efficiently using a public-private partnership approach. P3 project delivery options differ in terms of the level of private sector participation, as seen in the spectrum. On the far left end of a spectrum is the traditional approach, which is design, bid, build, performed by different entities. As we move to the right of the spectrum, we see more innovative approaches where the private sector assumes diverse roles, including financing, building, operation, and even maintenance of public infrastructure assets. After the preliminary analysis of options, a quantitative and more detailed analysis of options is performed. This is known as a value for money analysis, where the cost of a project delivered using a P3 approach is compared with the cost of a project delivered using the traditional procurement approach. At this stage, project risks are identified, quantified, and allocated to the party that is best able to manage it. To make the best decision for project delivery, expert opinions must be used in combination with the results of the value for money analysis. If the P3 approach does not provide cost savings, the infrastructure asset is delivered using the traditional procurement approach. On the other hand, if the P3 approach leads to cost savings, the public entity will proceed with the P3 approach. The public entity or the government will then issue a request for qualifications, after which a short list of potential bidders is obtained. A request for proposals is then sent out and a suitable bid is selected. After finalizing the terms of a contract, the public-private partnership initiates. In a P3, a special purpose vehicle is set up to deliver the project. The special purpose vehicle can be considered as the P3 company from the private sector which enters into a contract with the public entity. It is a consortium made up of lenders, shareholders, design and construction subcontractors, life cycle maintenance subcontractors, service providers, and many more. Depending on the type of P3 agreement and the infrastructure asset, revenue generated from the infrastructure goes back to the special purpose vehicle, which is used to service loans and pay back dividends to shareholders. In some P3 arrangements, revenue may also be shared with the public entity. In effect, the public entity will maintain oversight over the asset to ensure the needs of the public are met. In a nutshell, not all projects can be delivered using a P3 approach. P3 approach only makes sense when significant cost savings and efficiencies can be obtained. Critics of the P3 approach highlight the level of complexity involved in the contracting process as a reason to avoid this approach. Also, skeptics view P3s as a means by which government may hide public debt. Concerns are genuine, given the fact that despite a host of successful P3 projects, there have been a few failed projects over the years. However, when appropriate due diligence is done and is combined with a transparent procurement process, the merits of P3s cannot be overlooked. P3s enable governments to utilize operational efficiencies and innovation from the private sector. P3s can also deliver projects in a timely manner, especially in economies where the government may find it difficult to provide large upfront capital costs. This concludes the Civil Data Analytics introductory video on P3s. Thank you.